Okay.
Okay, this interview is with Christine Larsen and Wendy Atwood, special education teachers. Uh, Ms. Larsen, can you tell us a little bit about your background? You've been teaching for a really long time.
Yes, I've taught for about 34 years total. I taught 18 years in general ed, and I did kindergarten, second, third, and fourth. And then I've been teaching special education since then in the K-6 setting.
And I mean, how many years have you been teaching special education now?
Probably, well, 34 minus 18, so 16.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
lot. And
yeah.
so I came into working at the school with a special ed background, but then you taught me so much. So I'm really excited for this interview. And then Wendy Atwood, can you tell us about your background as a special ed teacher? And then you were also a paraeducator and a parent.
Yeah. So I got my master's right after I did my undergraduate, and I got my master's in special education, but decided to stay home with my kids. So I kind of took a roundabout sort of way to get into the education field. So this is my second year of full-time teaching in special education. I did, when I was home with my kids, my husband and I decided to do foster care. So we have biological kids and foster kids, and because of our foster kids, we have, we just kind of have a unique perspective. They bring different challenges, and I also have two kids on an IEP, so I'm also a parent of special needs kids as well.
Really, thank you so much. I know a lot of my students asked about foster care and what that means in the IEP meeting. If when we need that required parent, you were the person that came to the meeting as the foster parent with the legal rights. Some students had questions regarding if that biological parent is ever invited to an IEP meeting.
I am not sure. My kids were
Yeah.
younger when they were in foster care, so I'm not sure how that would work. But my understanding is, like foster parents would not be allowed to sign anything. My guess is they could go to the meetings, but they cannot sign anything. I couldn't, most of the time, it was hard even to take my foster kids to the doctor because I had no legal rights. I couldn't sign for anything. I couldn't, so a case manager, I'm guessing, would have to do that for foster kids.
Until they're legally adopted. Okay, that makes sense. That really helps. Thanks, Ms. Atwood. So we can get to the questions. The first question is, and whoever wants to chime in, if you want to alternate, you both have so much knowledge. Discuss the similarities and differences among students with and without disabilities. That's a good
All right.
one.
So I would say the similarities are every child wants to do well and wants to be successful and succeed. I think they also, I think even with typical kids, when it gets too tough, they can sometimes lose their motivation. So I think that is probably a big point too, making sure it's at their level. Typical kids, it's at their level usually always. But everyone needs to kind of start at their ability level, I guess.
And I think our special needs, they just need to work harder. It's just harder for them to be successful in the classroom and doing a lot of things. It means that they have to work harder. And but yeah, like Christine said, they want to be successful. They're, in a lot of ways, they are just typical kids.
That makes sense. So everyone wants to be successful. One group, the students with disabilities, have to work harder. So they're putting a lot more energy into all of these academic activities more than their non-disabled peers. That makes sense to me. Describe the characteristics of various disabilities and their educational implications for students at your school. So you can maybe the three, if this maybe the population of students you see the most. I don't know if that's learning disabled, autism, and maybe OHI with the ADHD, or if the population has changed?
No, I think the three you just said is probably our highest.
Right. Yeah. We seem to have a higher number of autism in our lower classes, our kindergarten and
okay.
first grade classes. It seems to be um, more so than the older kids. Would you agree, Christine, or not?
Yeah, I think we figured out we have about 10% of our kindergartners have been identified with autism or DD, which sometimes they identify before autism.
Mhm.
And then are you the one, are they coming in with these diagnoses, or are you the one evaluating them?
Both. Couple of them this year have come in with METs, but no IEPs because they were done, towards the end of a preschool, or because of COVID, things didn't get done. And then there's a couple, I would say most of them came in. And then there's a couple that we are identifying in K1 who, their behaviors are what is kind of setting them apart. Maybe not their academics as much.
Mhm.
Okay, so then how are the classroom teachers identifying their behaviors as different? What types of things are they noticing?
So the new kids coming in, we have the 45-day screener, so they have to go through that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it might be either their speech, their ability to stay on task and focus, follow oral directions, their social skills on the playground, or, in line.
They have a hard time. Once you say they have a really hard time transitioning from one activity to
Yes,
Oh,
to,
okay.
exactly.
if something
Yes,
is
Wendy.
different,
Yeah.
they have such a hard time with that.
Yep.
If everything is the same, typically they're okay, but one little change and they're set off for the day.
Yeah.
That
And
makes
a
sense.
lot of them are running out of the room
Oh, okay.
when they get overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
So they're overwhelmed faster than their peers, and then when asked to transition from activity to activity, it's just really hard for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That makes sense to me. And then what about the learning disability population? I know that it's typically, there's signs of a reading disability like dyslexia or dyscalculia. How do students who have a learning disability look different than their non-disabled peers?
I
you
think
want me
with
to
dyslexia, the biggest thing is, you see a lot of reversals in their letters
Oh,
and then also
okay.
in their numbers. And then
Uh-huh.
it is just harder for them to be able to get those letter stems out and blend them together. And but I would say the biggest thing is probably those reversals, and then just a harder time putting the sounds together.
And then for the older kids, it would be their, when they're given their assessments at the beginning of the year for their benchmarks, they're
Mhm.
much lower than their peers.
Are you using
And then
Dibble still?
Yeah. And then they're struggling to also, make progress as quickly.
So you're giving the Dibbles and then they're lower than their peers, and after interventions, they're not making very much progress.
Correct.
That
They're,
makes sense.
they may be making progress, but not what you would expect with interventions and support and tutoring.
Yeah, after everyone's kind of pouring their hearts in, they're just not making a lot of progress. And then we'll go to this third question. Explain the effects of disabilities. Explain the effects disabilities can have on students' academic and social development, their attitudes, their interests, and their values.
Oh, that's a loaded question.
I know there's a lot to unpack there. Maybe, I think we can understand their academic performance, but how have you seen students and their disabilities impact their social development? Because we were looking at a class grid actually in class, like a class profile, and we noticed a lot of the students who had IEPs also had notes in the class profile that they had trouble with peer interactions and just apathy and maybe even aggression. Have you noticed that link also with your students at all?
Wendy, do you want to talk about your second, third graders?
I can. So I think sometimes when, when they're not feeling successful, when they're not, and also when they're not feeling supported in the classroom or at home, I think that's a lot of times when you see the, that social development that's not quite what you would see in a typical student. They they're going to act out. They don't, rather than saying, I don't know how to do this, they act out behaviorally, and they would rather have a behavior problem than admit that this is really too hard for me. It's rather than maybe it's about saving face. Even in the second
Yeah.
and third graders, they'd rather just cause a scene and get out of the classroom rather than admit that hey, this is too hard for me, I can't really do this without help.
That makes sense. So then, making sure that they feel supported in the classroom. And I know that some students act out, and then some are really inspiring just with their overall fortitude and perseverance that they work so hard each day. Can you describe what you've noticed with students who have the other end of the pendulum, where that we're all inspired because of just how hard they work?
Yeah, I have one little girl that comes to mind who, she's in fifth grade and she still struggles to read, but this girl has a smile on her face every day and she works so hard, and it doesn't come easy to her, but she's happy to come to school and she works hard, she has friends, and she has great relationships with her peers and her teachers. And she will just say, yeah, that's too hard, or she'll guess, or, something like that. But I feel like she, socially, her social emotional skills are very on par. And so,
Yeah.
I think also it has to do with how much support maybe they're getting at home. I know the kids that
Yeah.
have parents that actually sit with them and do their homework with them, or taking them for outside tutoring, and are really working with them and helping them to build up their strengths. Those are the ones that I see being more motivated and have more of a love of learning. I think the ones who are not given as much support have a little more apathy, and they're not quite as motivated. And they're the ones that aren't getting the help with the homework and turning things in, and so it's just that vicious cycle then.
So everything just feels harder. Yeah, that makes sense. Describe what are the unique needs that students with disabilities need in a classroom. So what types of accommodations are typical that general education teachers are in charge of implementing and using in their classroom for students with disabilities? Are you using a lot of speech to text or text to speech or anything like that?
So this year, we actually have several students with severe dyslexia on. So we have moved to getting some computers and using text to speech. Typically
good.
within our setting, that has not been something that's come very readily or automatically. Typically what we would do is we would modify their tests and help them with their homework so that when they go home, they don't have as much. We give them some supports in the classroom. We let them test in smaller locations so we can help read and clarify the questions. We give them more time. We do it in a smaller group so they're not trying to keep up with their peers who are going at a faster rate, things like that. But recently we have added some text to speech for those older students, and by older I just mean the 4th and 5th graders who still cannot read and write at the same pace that their ability and thoughts and vocabulary are going inside their head.
That makes sense. Those were a lot of the ones that we talked about in class too. Can you describe how you collaborate with collaborate either co-teaching or just overall collaboration with general ed teachers?
Do you want to start, Wendy?
Sure. That's like my favorite part of the job is working with the gen ed teachers. I think it's so important to just have just a good relationship with teachers, and so you're not like hounding them for information, and you just have a good relationship with them. You just pop into the classroom and talk to them after school and whenever you have the chance. And I've I haven't been doing this for real long, but I feel like we work really well as a team. And I feel like everybody supports each other, and like everybody's willing to give up a lunch in order to have a meeting if they need to, or and I feel like it's just a good environment. And we have to work with the gen ed teachers a lot, and we have to work well with them. And if you have a good relationship with them, it's so much easier to do that.
Yeah, so just
Yeah.
having that open line of communication and stopping by each other's rooms frequently, and
Mhm.
meeting over prep times and lunch times to talk about those the important students in their classroom. That's
Yeah, and supporting them, sometimes,
mhm.
these kids spend a lot of time in their class, especially when there's, behavioral problems. It's, you know what, I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to come in and I'm going to do inclusion, and I'm going to be in your classroom as much as I can in order to help you through this, because you shouldn't have to do this by yourself. And, admin is fantastic here at the school. And we work together as a team, and we all help out where we can.
What does it look
I
like,
think that-
Wendy, when oh, go ahead, Christine.
No, I was just gonna say, I think to piggyback on everything Wendy said, I think it's being flexible. It's not just having set
yes.
times. It's like, popping in and out, just being flexible when you have a minute here or there. I know in the past they had kind of set office hours and things like that, but that doesn't really work. So, it's just a lot of
Yeah.
flexibility.
Yeah,
It's
for
finding
sure.
time when you have time, and making use of 10 minutes here and 5 minutes there, not
Yes.
being,
Mhm,
that makes sense. What does it look like when you push into a classroom?
So I'm doing quite a bit of inclusion, more so than I have in the past. In the third grade class, it's really struggling, just with behaviors and a lot of refusing to initiate tasks. And it's really just going in there, and I kind of know my hot spots. There's there's 3 or 4, maybe 5 students in that class. Some of them are ESS and some of them are not, but it's really just going in there and checking to see how they're doing. A lot of times I'll come up alongside them and just make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, that they're writing, and maybe it's just a quick good morning, how are you, that type of thing, without being distracting to the whole thing. Just not disrupting the whole class, but just let them, let the students know, hey, I'm here to support you. And, but also letting that teacher know that, hey, I'm here if you need me, for the next little bit, I'll be here, and I can take a student out if I need to, or, I can help rearrange their desk if they've already just dumped out their entire desk on the floor. And, it's just being that extra set of hands that, the students need and the teachers need as well.
So you're an extra adult in the classroom that supports whatever's needed, if it's extra
Yeah,
instruction or helping with organization. I'm sure that makes sense to me. This is the last question. There's so many laws and procedures that we're always learning with IDEA and new compliance updates, and just new teaching strategies, that we're staying up to date with the newest research of what's most effective. How do you both stay up to date with just new compliance information, and also new teaching strategies?
So I belong to a couple different groups. I belong to CEC, and then I also get newsletters from ADH, AD, what is it? ADD webs, or there's a couple different places.
One of the acronyms.
Yeah. So they send me updates, and then like Wendy and I are all, we get updates for touch math. She's going to learn a new reading program to help support some of our kids with dyslexia.
What's it called? I'm curious.
The one I'm really most interested in is it's called the LIPS program, and I haven't gotten approval.
Lips.
I haven't gotten approval for it, but it's by Linda Nobel.
I
I've heard
took
really
a
good
pro
things.
development on that a long time ago. I loved it.
Okay.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah,
And then
so
our
that's
other
kind of-
teacher is
yeah.
going to be trained in Barton.
Mhm.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
sounds
just
silly, but
attending your
I get a
trainings.
lot of my new stuff. I get a lot of it from Facebook groups, like special education Facebook groups, and play. I really enjoy the play based, so
Yeah.
like like we haven't even the kids don't even realize like they've been learning, and like, oh, we're done already. I'm like, yeah, we're done already. I love being able to incorporate that, and that's why I love those those groups that they come up with different ideas, and it's helpful to be able to copy what other people are doing that's
Mhm.
successful.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
Mrs.
that's great.
Gonzalez said too. Mary Gonzalez, the speech teacher, she said that she gets a lot of information from social media because people
Yeah.
with master's degree and PhDs are sharing what they know and taking really
Mhm.
great videos of it in practice. And so yeah, I've been noticing, I've been following a lot more teachers too, and getting a lot of information. There's one guy, the speech dude. He's really good.
Aw.
He's got
Yeah.
so much information. It's a man, and he just has a really great, his outlook matches mine.
Yeah.
And he's just funny. Well, thank you both so much. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to talk with the students that I'll be showing this to, and giving us all of the valuable information that you get from just years of teaching and being in the classroom. And so I appreciate you so much.
No, you're welcome.
Thanks. It was good to see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.